everybody, welcome back to Kavanaugh's Corner. And yes, I shaved. Today on the channel, I'm going to be reviewing quite possibly one of the funniest movies of all time. This is an all-new 4K release, and I was able to get this thanks to the great people over at Viper Video in Tampa, Florida. And if you live in the Tampa area, definitely go stop by. These guys had this in stock the day of release, and I was very, very glad to get this. The movie, of course, is Spinal Tap. This is a rock and roll mockumentary here that's directed by Rob Reiner, and it stars Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, Harry Shearer, Rob Reiner himself, and even a really early appearance by Fran Drescher, who's in this. So there's a lot of really great actors and actresses. And if you haven't seen this before, I do highly recommend the movie just on its own merits. It's a very, very funny movie. But this movie really led the way for a lot of other films and TV shows that have come out since. You definitely wouldn't have a show like The Office without this movie. The humor is very similar, but I just love how outrageous this movie is. And it's all played pretty straight, which I think is the best part of this film. I love kind of like that straight, dry humor, even though something completely ridiculous is going on. It's a lot of fun. But today we're going to be reviewing this all-new 4K release from the Criterion collection. And something that you may not know, the film buffs out there may know, but this is actually a very early film in the Criterion collection. This actually is spine number 12, and they kept the spine number for this. So it's really cool to see them re-release this, because I don't think the Criterion collection has had this since it was on Laserdisc over 20, 30 years ago. So it's pretty cool. The actual packaging is really nice as well. It has this kind of digibook case here, and of course you have the Stonehenge made from the speakers there, and you have the big logo on the other side, and as you open it up, there is a faux fan magazine on the inside, which I think is great, and this has a bunch of little articles and photos and stuff, but it is laid out like a fan magazine, and it actually is played very, very straight, which I think is kind of funny, even though there are little drawings and articles about the film inside. It kind of goes back and forth, and even has little things here about advertisements about their dead drummer, which I think is just a riot. So there's a lot of really funny stuff in here, but it is a 3-disc set. So you get one 4K disc and 2 standard Blu-rays. One of them has the film, and then the third disc here has the special features. So that is really nice, and of course, the discs are knobs that go to 11, which is just, I just got such a laugh out of that when I first opened this. Again, if you've seen the film, you know that joke. That is pretty much the biggest iconic joke from this movie. And it's a really nice job they did with the packaging here. And I'm not always a big fan of these digibooks, but I do like how funny this one was and all the little jokes that are included. Even on the very back, there's a little thing here that says that the soundtrack is available on Polymer Records. And then it says Polydor, which is the real record company. The Polymer Records is the fake record company that Spinal Tap belongs to in the film. So little things like that. They really paid a lot of attention to detail just with the packaging, which I expected kind of no less from Criterion. But today we're going to be talking about the picture quality, the audio quality, and the special features, of which this does have a lot of. So buckle up. Here comes the review. So to jump right in here with Spinal Tap, first we're going to talk about this picture quality here, because this is an all-new 4K digital restoration, which was supervised and approved by director Rob Reiner, which is always nice to see. Now, the interesting thing about this new transfer is that this movie was shot on 16 millimeter, which makes it, I think, only the second or third film I've reviewed on the channel here that was shot on 16 millimeter. There's not many of those movies out there, especially on 4K. And to be honest, not a lot of films that are shot in that format make it to 4K. Evil Dead, I think, was shot in 16 millimeter. Another one that I have that I reviewed a while back, a very different film from Spinal Tap, was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original film. That was shot on 16 millimeter, and it actually looked pretty darn good in 4K. And I'm glad to report that this is no different. I was actually very, very impressed by this because the way that the restoration was done, according to Criterion inside here, is that they used the original 16 millimeter film negative as well as a 35 millimeter blow up of that 16 millimeter negative. So they kind of got the best of both worlds when they restored this to 4K. I think they probably used that 35 millimeter blow up a little more than the 16 millimeter just to get that 4K resolution out of the picture here, because this movie really does look great. Now, the one thing I will tell you about is that this new transfer, much like older transfers of this film, it does have a good amount of film grain. Now, the nice thing is it has been mitigated in a way that does not damage the picture quality. I thought the picture quality of this was actually pretty spectacular because they were able to keep a good amount of film grain in, because this movie has always looked very grainy, and I think it's, you know, almost meant to be like that on purpose, but it's also partly the fact that it was shot on 16 millimeter and then, of course, expanded to 35 for theatrical releases. And I was very impressed with the amount of detail they were able to keep in the frame in this. As I mentioned, you know, there is a good amount of grain, but it never gets to the point where it's extraordinarily noisy. And I kind of got faked out because when you load the disc up, the initial menu shows a fairly grainy, kind of rough-looking clip of the movie, or a couple clips of the movie. And it doesn't really look that bad when you finally start it up. But there is a good amount of film grain. For those of you out there that are grain haters, you're not going to like this disc. I'm just letting you know, it's a very natural picture. But the color on this does have Dolby Vision HDR on it. The color spectrum of the film has been greatly expanded, and I will say the movie looks more lifelike, detailed, and vivid more than it ever has before. The wild kind of colors of Spinal Tap's Concert really jump out at you now, and the black levels were also very, very impressive during those sequences because they are kind of dark. They're shot in what looks like little arenas and stages and stuff, but it does look really good. And the lights and everything looks very bright. Everything looks very lifelike. And I will say, like, skin tones and overall colors are very, very accurate on this new 4K transfer. And I don't think the film has ever looked better than it does on this Criterion disc here. It's a great effort from Criterion to really clean this movie up, too. I think, you know, there's definitely been some damage repair done on this, and a lot of other transfers I've seen of this film, there's a lot of scratches and cuts and stuff in the film that's non-existent now in this version. So it looks great, but they kept that natural kind of gritty look that this movie has always had, because it's meant to be kind of an off-the-cuff type of documentary, even though it's, you know, totally made up. But it's very good looking. Very, very impressive stuff with the picture quality here. Now, in terms of audio quality on this disc, we actually get two audio tracks on here. One of them is the original uncompressed stereo soundtrack, which is a DTS HD master audio. And we also get a 5.1 surround sound mix, which is a DTS HD master audio as well. Now, I watched this with the 5.1 track the first time around. And I will say that 5.1 track on this is outstanding. Now, previously, I had actually only seen this movie in stereo. I did have to turn it up about 5 or 6 points from where I normally have it in order to get it to a pretty decent volume level. I will say, the music moments in the film, the concert sequences, they really sound so much better in that 5.1. I did switch back to the stereo on second viewing just to see kind of how it sounded, but the stereo really doesn't hold a candle to the 5.1 in this case. Now, if you're a purist, again, I think you'll be very pleased with that original stereo soundtrack, but there are a lot of little moments that are in that 5.1 that you kind of miss out on with that stereo track. As the band is going around areas where there's other people, you do get some kind of ambient noises, little situational sounds and stuff in the surrounds that you don't get in that stereo track. And as I mentioned, the concert sequences really roar in that 5.1. Those sequences are way better spread out, and the sound of the crowd and everything in the rear speakers, it really puts you in the concert. And overall, I mean, no matter which one you go with, the dialogue is going to be clear. And to me, the 5.1 was the clear winner on this. Now, the funny thing is, in the little booklet that's included here, it does say that the 5.1 track was created from the original 35mm magnetic stems. So this is most likely a new audio track. However, they errantly listed it as a Dolby surround track in this booklet, even though it's a DTS HD. So I don't know exactly if it's a new or reused audio track, but it did sound great either way. Now, in terms of special features, there are actually quite a few of them on here. There is 3 audio commentaries featuring Rob Reiner, actor Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, and Harry Shearer. There is another one that is with producer Karen Murphy, editors Robert Layton and Kent Beta. And then there's another one that actually has the band members in character. And if you've never heard that one, it is an absolute riot. And they actually list Nigel Tufnell, David St. Hubbins, and Derek Smalls. So the 3 lead actors are actually in character doing a commentary. It is a riot, and I highly recommend any fan of this film to watch it with that commentary at least once. It is really, really funny stuff. There's also a new 30-minute interview with director Rob Reiner and Patton Oswalt, which is really cool. There's also a special feature on that 3rd disc here that is called The Cutting Room Floor, and that is over 98 minutes of deleted scenes and outtakes, which means it's actually longer than the film itself. This movie is only 82 minutes long, and to be honest with you, it may be one of the most well-paced comedies I've ever seen in my life. That's actually pretty wild that they included that on there. There's also a featurette called Spinal Tap: The Final Tour, and excerpts from I think it was a TV special that was called The Return of Spinal Tap. That was from 1992. There's also interviews from the band for its 2009 Back from the Dead album. And there are trailers, media appearances, and a bunch of music videos on here as well. So there are a ton of special features. The film looks outstanding. It sounds great. I think it's safe to say that this is a big recommendation from me here. Criterion really knocked it out of the park with this release. Again, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend this movie just on its own. It's just a really funny, extraordinarily well-made comedy. And, there's not many movies out there that are like it. There are many that have mirrored it, but nothing like it. And I absolutely love this film. This is, it's outstanding. So I highly recommend Spinal Tap. I'll leave a link in the description that goes to Amazon. If you use that link, I do get a little kickback here on the channel. It does help me out a little bit since, I don't get every movie sent to me. This one I did buy with my own money. If you really want to help out the channel, though, the best thing you can do is hit that thumbs up button down below if you enjoyed this video, and definitely make sure to subscribe so you can be notified when I make my next review. I wish you guys all the very best. I hope you feel informed. Please stay safe, keep collecting, and take it easy.